Hello everybody, it's Alyssa, otherwise known as Planetologist. It is August 15th, 2019, so that means I'm going to be doing a make-along video today. It is the evening, my kids are in bed, so I'm not going to be talking very loudly. They're kind of just beside me here, so hopefully you can hear me. If not, I'll turn up the volume when I do the editing. As promised, I am going to be doing cross-stitching this time. For those of you who don't know or don't remember, I've been cross-stitching now for a couple of years. The first time I ever cross-stitched was because of Caroline from the Fiber Friends and from Off the Grid Needleworks. Part of the Fiber Friends' very first giveaway was a bag from Caroline, two cross-stitch patterns, and a promise from Caroline to give that person cross-stitching lessons if it was the first time they were cross-stitching. So I won, and I took Caroline up on that. She sat down with me at what was then our local needleworks shop, which is no longer in existence anymore, unfortunately. But we met there, and she took me through the process of picking a fabric that I liked, deciding if I wanted to stay with the charted threads, and then she also sat down with me, taught me how to start. She bought me all the threads, the fabric, and even a Q-snap, and I believe a Q-snap cover, all for this prize. And ever since then I fell in love. I'll throw in a picture here of my very first cross stitch that Caroline showed me how to start, and I finished it within a couple of months since starting, and now it hangs in our kitchen. And it was perfect because we love lattes in our house, so it was a really nice, perfect gift that Caroline gave us. The second pattern she gave us, or gave me, sorry, in the giveaway, I actually forwarded on to a friend who was also starting to cross stitch. Verena, do you still have it? No pressure, I get that. So today I'm going to be working on my Shades of Orange by Northern Expressions Needleworks. This is a picture of the full design. This is a part of a series of 12 other patterns, I believe 12. Yeah, it's the 5th in the series. So there's, shades of green, blue, purple, plum, wine, gold, and they're all beautiful and amazing. I'm really drawn to these types of designs, these geometric, symmetrical designs. So I actually have 2 more picked out of these designs that I would like to do and to have as a set. I like the green and the plum, I believe. So I'm going to be working on that. The fabric that I have is you can hear sirens. We live on a kind of busy street, but not super busy, but it is a major north-south for fire and ambulance and police, because it's not as busy as some of the other big roads that are nearby, so a lot of times they'll take our road. Anyway, so the fabric I'm using is a 28 count even weave. So for those of you who aren't familiar with cross stitching, the count means how many holes per inch. So if I were to measure an inch, there would be 28 holes. Even weave just means that the holes are evenly spaced. If you were to get a linen, for example, they're not, because some of the strands of the fabric are thinner than others. And actually, my very first fabric that I chose for my very first project was 32 count linen, which is apparently one of the most difficult fabrics you can work on. The higher the count, obviously, the more difficult it is to see. And linen is very difficult, or I shouldn't say very difficult, more difficult because it's not evenly spaced, right? So starting with a 32 count linen made everything else seem super easy. So yeah, so 28 count even weave, and I think the color is mushroom, so it's just like a nice neutral color. I've showed this a lot of times. A nice neutral beige type color, and I am using the charted DMC colors, which is DMC 918 and 921. Just to show you those, sorry, let me grab my stuff. I am using a Evertote bag. She made this beautiful, one-of-a-kind, custom-made cross-stitch bag tote for my 11 by 17 Q-snap. I think this is the biggest one you can get. I know a lot of people don't like big ones because of the way you have to hold them. I have figured out ways to hold this frame that I can stitch two-handed, which means one hand on top and one on the bottom. However, the way I'm going to be stitching today, because I'm kind of in a weird location, I don't stitch in this room usually, but it's good for video making. I'll be doing one-handed. So yeah, and it came with a little notions pouch. Check out her stuff. So 921 is going to be the lighter or brighter orange, and then 918 is the darker. So I don't know if the colors are going to show it here because it is evening, so it probably won't be great, but you can kind of get the idea of how different they are. This one's kind of a burnt rusty color, and this is more like a brighter burnt orange carrot type color. And it's just two colors, which makes this pattern really nice and rhythmical. You don't have to change colors a lot, which is really nice when you're stitching. I see my husband's out the window. I think he's going for a walk. I can see him across the street, so he must be going for a walk somewhere. It's a beautiful evening here. Okay, so to show you kind of where I am in this pattern, this is the center and this is the top. I have this same motif over here. So you can see it's slightly wider than my frame, so it'll probably be out to there. I think it's like a 15 by 15 is the final, yeah, 15 3/4 by 15 3/4. I think, I don't know. No, because this is 11 by 17, right? So it's an 18 by 18, I'm sorry. 18 by 18 will be the final size of it, the pattern itself, and then when you frame it, it'll be bigger than that, right? So I have all this done on this side. My goal by the end of this summer is to get done this section. Tonight I'm going to be working on these because they are easy to do while talking and I don't have to look at the pattern. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I have my needle threaded up already. So I'm going to be starting on one of those. So you might not be used to me wearing my glasses. Now I do wear contact lenses usually, but I find when I stitch, that my glasses are a little bit better to wear. It means I can see things a little better close up. I am nearsighted, excessively so. So when things are closer to my face, the better I can see them. So when I'm wearing my glasses, I can see better when I'm cross-stitching. So this pattern that I'm doing right now, this part, I was doing two-handed there, wasn't I? I don't like stitching one-handed, so I'm going to find a way to do it. I just kind of rest it right now on my boobs and kind of use my hands. I don't have the best posture right now, but hey, that's okay. So this part of the pattern are little diamonds that make up the border of the 4 main squares, I guess, of the pattern. And the diamonds are fairly simple. They just have, go from 1 to 3 to 5 stitches, and then 3 to 1 again. And so you just repeat 1, 3, 5, 3, 1, 3, 5, 3, 1. So it's pretty easy to do. It's pretty easy to do without making a mistake. It's pretty easy to also see if you make a mistake. Now, of course, if you're a cross stitcher like I am, you always kind of worry about, for example, just let me finish this stitch. You worry about, are these diamonds gonna line up with these? Now, of course, I've tried to check that many times, check and double check. This thing's getting annoying. I might take this, my grime guard off, but we'll see, because it's holding in the excess fabric here. You can see I have excess fabric. But I don't have the best light in this room either. So I'm going to be fidgeting a lot probably, and not stitching very smoothly as I would. What did I just do? As I would if I were in my normal stitchy posture and location. But that's okay, because I really wanted you to actually see me actually do stitching, because I'm realizing for the past few Mick with me's, you can't actually see what I'm doing, which maybe you don't care. I mean, when I watch stitch and knit with me videos, I don't really care, because I'm just listening to the person talking, because I'm also working on my own stuff, right? So yeah, so hopefully you don't mind me being all over the place. Every once in a while I'll remember to look at the camera again. So yeah, I've been working on this piece for sure for over a year now, because I remember last summer at the cottage we went to, I was working on it. So it's definitely been a year. It's definitely a long-term project. I seem to be drawn towards larger projects. I haven't been really all that interested in doing, you know, small little cute things, but I have done some. So my first cross stitch was a small one, and I think that was because I wanted to be sure I liked it before jumping right into something huge. I have done a Christmas ornament. I cross-stitched a snowflake last year, and I posted that on Instagram and shared it with you on my channel probably in December of 2018, but of course I deleted those videos, so you can't see them anymore. What else have I done? Right now I'm also working on a dimensions kit called Moonlit Cabin, and that is a smaller piece. It's a 5x7, but it's full coverage. So even though it's small, there's a lot of stitching to be done. I gotta say, so far in my copious amounts of stitching, which means not very much, I don't love doing full coverage. I really like the use of negative space in cross stitch, and I think that's why one of the reasons I'm so drawn to these shades of design, because even though you're only stitching with 2, I think some of them maybe have 3 colors, it seems like a lot more when you look at the design. I had a friend of mine come over while I was stitching one day, and she's not a stitcher, she's not a crafter, so she had no idea what I was doing, and she's like, oh, that's really beautiful, look at all the different shades and colors, that looks really hard. And I said, no, it's only 2 colors. And she didn't believe me until I showed it to her really close up, because the colors kind of play off of each other, and because they're so close in shades, it kind of looks like there's shades in between those colors when they're close by. And I think that negative space also adds another dimension to it, right? So I really like that aspect of these and other similar designs where that negative space is also part of the pattern, you know? It's not just there as background, it's actually seems to be part of the pattern. And I think that is a good designer, right? A good designer can use that negative space to their advantage. I'm not saying obviously that the people who design or the companies who design full coverage aren't good designers. Of course they are. It's just a different type of designing. If you've been watching since March, you'll know that I got myself a custom made cross stitch design, and I've barely done any of it. I started it on my birthday and I haven't done much on it because it is full coverage and it is a massive piece, and it has almost 100 colors in it. I mean, it'll look beautiful when it's done, but oh my goodness. I mean, that's gonna take me a decade to do. So I'm really, really keen on finishing this piece first. But all my other stitches are full coverage because I have the Dimensions kit, the Moonlit Cabin, which I showed on my last podcast, so you can see the progress I had made on it. Then I have my Circles design, which is the one I got for my birthday. And then my husband also got me a kit of the Starry Night painting by Van Gogh. Do you know there's 2 paintings that are called Starry Night or have some sort of version of Starry Night by Van Gogh? So there's the one that has the Big Dipper in it, and there's the one with like the wispy cloudy things and the church, I think it is. That's the one I have. And they're both called Starry Night. I think one might be called Starry Night in a specific place. I'll put it down on the screen because I did not know that, because often people talk about this painting Starry Night and there's 2 of them and I get confused. So anyway, there's that. This is kind of tiring to stitch this way, but that's okay. I'm not going to stitch for super long tonight. So it is August 15th. I can't believe it. School's going to start in a couple weeks. The kids are definitely getting to the point where they're getting antsy. I don't think they want to go back to school, but they're just getting squirrely. Me too. I'm getting squirrely too. I'm kind of feeling ready to get back to work. I've started thinking about my classes, starting prepping a bit. Oh, this fabric keeps getting in the way. Can't see very well. So that means summer's coming to a close soon though, doesn't it? Which usually by September I'm ready for summer to be over. I don't love summer, especially here. I grew up in Alberta, as you may know, and for me, Alberta summers are perfect. They are warm during the day, 25, 30 degrees Celsius, but then it cools down at night. Love that. I always love that. You always need a sweater or a cardigan or something in the evening there. And it can snow at any time, which is always fun. I remember it used to snow in July and August. Just randomly. I wouldn't mind that right now, to be honest. In this part of the world, in London, Ontario, it gets very humid. And I do not deal well with humidity. It just makes me want to be inside. It makes me really tired. I don't like that humidity. So in the fall it's nice because the humidity breaks, but it's still warm here. So that's definitely my favorite season here. Because into October it can still be, into the 20s some days, degrees Celsius. But the humidity's low, and then the colors are beautiful of all the trees. We have a lot of maple trees around here, and so they tend to turn oranges and reds and yellows, and it's beautiful. We have very similar coloring in the fall as the northeastern United States. So if you're in that area, it's very similar here, or if you've been to that area. And I think maybe that's why I'm drawn to the warm colors, if you've noticed. I often am drawn to oranges and yellows and reds and browns. I love browns. So right now I'm stitching this shades of orange, and then my Tegna sweater is orange. It's pretty much the exact same color as the orange, the brighter orange in this one. I gotta say it's probably halfway between these two, actually. It's like a burnt orange. I'm getting to the end of this length of thread. I'm going to see if I can get a couple more stitches out of it, and then I will tuck it in and get a new one. Then I'll show you where I'm at. So far I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these diamonds. The interesting thing about stitching is you don't think it's going to take very long, but it always does. It always takes way longer than you think it will. It's very slow. If you think knitting is slow, cross stitch is very slow. But it is very, very, I'm just going to tuck in my threads here, so bear with me here. It's very, very meditative, especially a piece like this, where you can easily do it without even looking at the pattern. Just gonna tuck this guy in here. And where are my scissors? Motorcycle. Let me get my scissors. I have these awesome little tiny scissors. This is the cap, and then they have these little scissors. They are perfect. I have about 5 of these. I got them from the Sexy Knitter, and I think I got 5 of them for under $10. They are great. I have one in every project. I usually have, every time I have a notions pouch, I always have one in there. And I also have one on the little table beside the chair that I usually craft in. They are perfect for stuff like that. Okay, so I tuck that in. So now I'm gonna re-thread my needle. Now let's see what I've got going here. Is this more than 2 or is this 2? So I forgot to say this at the beginning. I am using 2 threads. So that means I have 2, you can't see that, there you go. 2 different threads. And I'm holding them together. So it's like in knitting how you hold double. So I'm kind of holding 2 together and I'm just gonna untangle them. I try to split them apart when I start because you the more you split them apart, the better they tend to sit. Although this one's not splitting apart very well for me. What's going on here? So anyway, yeah, so I'm being very frustrating. So I'm holding 2 strands together. Just gotta get them lined up because for some reason one was not lined up very well. So 2 strands together, and then I go over. Oh my goodness, there was an actual. That's why it was not working out very well. You go over there. Okay, there was one tangled up in these 2 for some reason, so that's why it looked weird. I am a licker, so I apologize for that if that is offensive to you for some reason. Okay, so get this threaded on, and then I'm gonna tuck this in so that it doesn't become loose. So what I do when I tuck in my stitches, I thread my needle through on the back, maybe 3 stitches on the back, and I pull it right until those tips are the ends of the thread are tucked under those, and then I loop it back through the last one, so you kind of tie a little knot, and then I do that again. I do it twice. Sometimes I go back in the reverse directions, other times I don't. This is how Caroline told me to start a new needle. Now, I'm using a rather long length of floss or thread because if I'm doing a really big section of the same thing over and over again, I tend to use longer threads because I don't want to rethread over and over again. So I tend to use, this is usually longer. Usually I go about an arm length. This is much longer than that actually. But I think this was the last, it was kind of the last cut off of a skein. So I just, instead of cutting it into a smaller piece, I just decided to use it as is. So it's a little, yeah, it's definitely longer than I like. But oh well, it'll work. The reason why you don't want threads super long is because, of course, the more you pull threads through your fabric, the more worn and frayed it's gonna get. So you don't generally want a huge long piece of thread. Now, if I'm holding 2 separate threads together, I tend to go longer because, like I said, I don't want to be threading it a lot or rethreading a lot. I mean, I'm tending to go longer and longer as I do this to just because I hate threading. Well, I don't hate it. It's just a little break, right, that you have to do, and I don't want to take a break. So I haven't ran into a problem with that, but I also tend to use DMC. I haven't used silks yet. I'm trying to stay away from the expensive floss because it's just like with knitting. Once you start using the good stuff, you don't want to go back. You don't want to go back. It's like using cashmere knitting and going back to acrylic, right? So I'm going to stay away from the silks as long as I can. But I think the next time I do a shades of pattern, I'm going to go for the silks, because you don't need that many skeins. You only need, I think, 6 in total, so 3 of each color. Anyway, we'll see. So right now I'm just stitching with one hand, just because it's easier for me to hold the frame and get the fabric out of the way here. So I see I'm over 30 minutes already, so I'll just kind of wrap it up here. Oh yeah, so I was talking about how I'm stitching. So I'm using 2 strands of floss held together, and I'm going over 2 threads. So that's called 2 over 2. I'm using 2 strands of floss and I'm going over 2 threads on my fabric every time I do a stitch here. I'm going to do another stitch and then I'm going to draw a diagram for you, because that's not overly intuitive, but once you see it you'll be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So let me just finish this guy. I realize I said that at the end of the last stitch, but I'm going to do this one anyway. And I have to find a piece of paper. Let's see. I've done this before on my channel, but I think it was when, like my videos before, when I deleted them. I'm just going to slide over here, have a look at my yarn collection there. Paper. Okay, here we go. Okay. So, I'm not used to wearing these glasses. Okay, so we'll make a grid. Okay, here's the grid of the cross stitch fabric. Okay, let me just make it bigger so I can do 1 over 1 as well. So your cross stitch fabric has the strands going up and down and left to right, or horizontal and vertical, if you will. They do have specific names, weft, and I don't remember what the other one is, so I don't know stuff that well. But what you do, if you're doing a 1 over 1, that means you're going to use a square like this. Okay, this is the smallest possible square you can make. Okay, because you can't do more than 1 stitch in 1, right? A square can be 1 by 1 or 2 by 2, 3 by 3, 4 by 4, 5 by 5, etc. So you can't do 1 with just 1, although there are specialty stitches, I'm sure. But if you want to do 1 over 1, that means you start, it doesn't matter, but I'm going to do this backwards, but the way I'm showing it to you, you're going to start here, go across. Why isn't that drawing? Pencils. Start here, go across here. There's your first cross. Then that's going to go into the fabric, and then you're going to come back out in this square and go across. So that's 1 strand. If you have 1 strand of floss over 1, because you're only crossing 1 thread in your fabric, yes? Now if you're going over 2, you're going to start here And you're not just going to go over one, but you're going to go over two. And then you're going to come up here and then down here. So, but see how now you're forming an X over a square. That's a 3 by 3 square. And then if you're using two strands of floss, like I am, so you're holding two strands together, you're going to have two strands lying across here and then lying across here. It just makes it a little thicker, right? More well defined. And some people like the look of one strand, and they might be doing 1 over 2. Some people like doing 3 strands to make it really heavy. So yeah, that's the difference between 1 over 1 and 2 over 2. If you held 3 together, it would be 3 over 2. If you did 2 together here, it would be 2 over 1. If you're doing Eta, because Eta just has holes, right? So you just see the holes. There's specific holes. So you're really doing 1 over 1 if you're using Eta cloth. So if you've been doing Eta, you're doing 1 over 1. Or 3 over 1 or 2 over 1, however many strands you're holding together. And of course, depending on how the count of your fabric, if this is smaller count, then your X's are going to be smaller. If you're using bigger count, then your X's are going to be bigger. And there's all sorts of calculators online that you can use. So for example, this pattern called for, well, I guess it told you a bunch of different ones. Let me see, does it say if it's 1 over 1? So the estimates on this pattern is for 40 count using 1 strand. So 40 holes in an inch doing 1 over 1 like this. But I didn't want to do 40 count. That's too small for me. Well, I've never used it, but I didn't want it to be that big, so, or that small. And I wanted the pattern to be bigger. Because if you did 40 count 1 over 1, it was only going to be 12.5 by 12.5 inches. I wanted it to be bigger. So I went to a 28 count and then figured out, but I'm doing 2 strands, so I needed to figure out how much more floss to buy. And there's all kinds of calculators on the internet for that. Whew, that was a lot more in depth than I thought it was going to go today, but there you go. So I think I'm just going to finish off this diamond and then we will stop it there for tonight. So next time I will see you will be end of August. I will do my regular update podcast. You will see if I have done any finished objects, and I'm thinking I will. I'm very close to finishing my Stitch Surfer socks, so I'm hoping to finish those. I am hoping to finish this motif by the end of August, and I'm also hoping that I'm gonna finish the lace part of the Tegna. I'm more than halfway through it. I've been trying to do 2 or 3 rounds a night. It's getting shorter, so I think my next round I actually reduce to 16. Oh, I have a knot. Do I? Oh, I do. Who earns? Just gonna back up here. It's gonna reduce to 16 stitches per repeat. Oh my goodness, this is all kinds of knots. 16 stitches per repeat. And it started off as 20 stitches per repeat. So that's good. There we go, that wasn't too hard to get. If you are cross stitching, I'll just say this now since that just happened. If you find a knot, try to deal with it as soon as you can. because otherwise it can really cause a problem. I do try to keep the back of my cross stitch as neat as I can as well, mostly because I want to frame it and I want it to lie flat when it's being framed. And also, especially in this case, my fabric is rather light, and one at least of my floss colors is dark, and so if you have a knot or something lying behind there and it gets up into the negative space, you can see it through the fabric, and that just takes away from the design. I'm just going to do 2 more crosses here and then we will say goodbye. So yeah, so back to my Tegna. Sorry, I'm a little scattered right now. Yeah, so it'll be down to 16 stitches in a repeat for each repeat, and there are 20 or 19 repeats, I don't remember. It's been so long since I cast that thing on. But I'm not enjoying it anymore. Actually, I'm enjoying that knit now, because I'm finding the lace to be a little more manageable and easier to remember, because now of course it's repeating some of the rows that I've done before, so I'm getting used to the strange patterning in it. Okay, I'm just gonna finish this one off and come up, and then we'll be done for tonight. So I guess I will see you in a couple of weeks for the end of August update, and hopefully by then, see, I did all of these. I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, only 6 in 40 minutes. I hope to finish this by then, by next time, and hopefully my stitch surfer socks and the lace part in my Tegna. We'll see how we do. Okay, that went way longer than I wanted it to, but that's okay. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got lots of stitching or knitting done tonight while you were listening to me babble on. So get lots of stitching, crafting done in the next couple of weeks, but don't forget to breeze too. See you next time. Bye bye.